Thank you. It's good to be back here. Actually, I think I spoke back here 12 years ago. I remember meeting an old friend, Jim Hamill, at the time. Anyway, this is a presentation that was developed with the help of an RCMP officer who was here with me at one point, and I know that it was 12 years ago because she was pregnant at the time, and I had to move her car to because it was out in the snowdrift. It was the only time I ever got to drive an RCMP car. Anyway, we're a very unusual organization. We're a joint forces group led by the RCMP in partnership with the OPP and the Competition Bureau of Canada. When did you ever hear of federal and provincial governments working together before? We're very different kind of operation. We operate out of North Bay, and we play a fairly crucial role in educating the public. What I'm going to try and cover today is a little bit of background as to who we are. I'm going to emphasize the seniors scams, mention the COVID-19 scams and things that have happened since, and a few internet dangers and tips. We were started 29 years ago by an OPP officer, Barry Elliott. In 2003, he helped train FBI agents to start a similar national operation in the States. And in January of this year, South Carolina has even launched a separate operation just for their state. Barry was also seconded to England for 2 years to help them set up a similar operation there. So we have a lot of really good things to say about Barry and the fact that he's still, even though he's been retired for a number of years, he's also still a volunteer. There are about 30 full-time staff in North Bay, and there are about 30 other volunteers, mostly in North Bay, but a few are scattered around Canada. Now, who we are and what we do. By way of an introduction, I'd like to show you our senior support unit. These are the 30-odd volunteers, maybe a few more in that picture. And I'm part of this very dedicated group of volunteers. Although I've been working for Minnesota for the last almost 20 years. We also operate with a lot of different police agencies all over the world. An example of how we partner with something called Operation Gold Dust, a multinational operation against a European ransomware family. And we supported them through the RCMP, the Calgary Police, and ourselves. And we worked with Europol, which is the main enforcement agency of the European Union. Now, I want to emphasize the seniors and why do the bad guys target us? Actually, if I only had time for one message, this would probably be it. The problem is we grew up in an era where we were taught to be trusted, and that's what the bad guys count on. All of these factors apply. Many seniors just cannot imagine how anyone could be so deceitful, especially in romance scams. And you'll see that, I hope, when we talk about them. And that's why we're the targets. I'm going to concentrate on the top 6 scams and actually one extra I'm going to throw in. That were the main losses and dollar loss last year. The first one was investment scams, and that's the first time it made it up to the top. Probably because a lot of us were sitting at home, not being able to do anything, and maybe trying to get on the investment train. We had 449 victims. And it was up, the losses were up over 600% from the year before. Now, we're not too involved in protecting older and vulnerable investors. The Ontario Securities Commission does that. So if you want to get into investments, just search online for OSC, Ontario Securities Commission. They not only will help you, but they can provide a monthly, or sorry, bi-weekly bulletin to you, and they'll also answer calls, and they will come and speak to you as well. So before you invest in anything, just Google OSC, if you're still using Google. Bitcoin values also sort of fall into that category now. And I guess our best advice about Bitcoins is just completely stay away from them. It's like an underground banking account, and the losses in recent years are just scary as anything. So stay away from Bitcoins, anything to do with Bitcoins. The second biggest one, and this was the biggest one for about 8 years, is the romance scam. Previously, it was the biggest one, I think, with an average loss of $76,000 last year for seniors alone. They're mostly females, and the scary part is that we only hear from about 5% of the victims. So the net total dollar loss would be 20 times that if we heard from everybody. Numbers are up by an increase of 82 victims last year. I had one 87-year-old Ontario victim, lady who lost $180,000, and she would not report it to the police. Even despite our advice, that of her family, and an elder abuse worker who tried to get me involved in it. She wouldn't listen to any of us, and she never did go to the police on it. The biggest one I know of in Canada was about $2 million. 1.5 million was lost to the scammer, and almost another $500,000 was lost by her trying to get somebody to track down where her money had gone. She spent $500,000 and didn't get anywhere. So they more than doubled over the last 2 years, which is very scary. They just literally skyrocketed. And how do they get the information? Well, there are 368 million dating app users' IDs and passwords that are for sale on the internet. So if somebody wanted to get into this, all they have to do is buy maybe 100 of those sucker lists and go to it. The contacts are usually made through these dating sites. This particular one was hacked about 5 years ago, and for a long time, the numbers were for sale, the names and numbers were for sale on the internet. Now there's so many copies of it out there that you can probably get them free. They're at an all-time high. The normal pattern is somebody tries to convince you, A, that they're a real person with the life history that they are feeding you, and B, that they're in love with you, and most importantly of all, C, that you're in love with them. And after weeks, perhaps months of careful groundwork, they may just succeed in that. And it seems very easy for them to part with some of your money. great deal of it. I'll mention a couple of examples. A lot of it is done through social media. All your information on Facebook is probably out there for anybody to take a look at. And unfortunately, you know, that's where the fraudsters go to look for it. If you want more information on this, I would suggest Dr. Phil shows. If you can, and find, just look at one or two of those and you'll see some live victims and how they have been conned into that. The Canadian Bankers Association has taken out a lot of big ads for this. Now, if the Canadian Bankers Association is concerned enough to take out ads to try and prevent you from losing your money, they must have a very good reason. And I'm going to show you 3 of these slides. This is what happens. Sometimes the signs are very simple. They start calling you cute before they've even met you. They really like you. They're in love with you. Love to get to know you better, things like that. Next thing you know, you've sent them some money, and you can kiss it goodbye, and you can kiss them goodbye too, because that's really the end of it. Once they've got all your money, they're gone. And as I mentioned, those fraud prevention tips for the Canadian Bankers Association, if you actually want more information on this, if you can just jot down cbc.ca, the Canadian Bankers Association's website, cbc.ca, and ask them for their tips. They have some very good articles. And our answer to this is that you wouldn't believe how blind people are on this. In a rare emergency, I might get called from North Bay to handle an online case. Mainly, this is my role here. But maybe it's during a staff meeting, or if it's North Bay, it's more like a hockey game. But occasionally I do get called. And one victim that I was asked to try and deal with had corresponded for 5 months with a Nigerian man. And she finally sent him money to fly over to Ottawa, where she was. And he claimed the seats on the plane were too small to Ottawa. Actually, there are no flights from Nigeria to Ottawa. I checked that out too. So he obtained seats on a plane that was flying to Miami. And so he ended up in Miami and phoned her again and explained the problem, and she sent him more money. The next day, he phoned from JFK in New York. Same problem. He got as far as New York. He was getting kind of close, so she sent him some more money. The next day, he supposedly called from Wyerton. Now, I actually went to the airport in Wyerton to check this out, and so speaking here. But there are no direct flights from New York City. Either way. Anyway, she sent him more money to Wyerton. They can just wire money, and they wire it to an account so that it's not really ever even going to Wyerton. It's probably going back to Africa. And that's what happened. The next day he called, oh, sorry, I keep forgetting about this. Next day he called, and he was across the river from Ottawa in jail in a small town in Ottawa. And he wanted her to bring some money over, or send some money over, because they had caught him with a gun license. And they wouldn't let him go until he bought a license for it. That's not the way it works either. unfortunately, she was out of money, and by that time, uh, I was able to contact the police in Ottawa, or the North Bay office contacted them, and they took over at that point. I doubt that he ever left Nigeria. So those are really serious ones. The next big one are service calls. All these annoying phone calls you get about duct cleaning, Microsoft. Microsoft is never going to phone you or me. Water heaters or filters. More recently, there are COVID masks and vaccine passports and all kinds of scams like that. Just be very leery of those phone calls. In fact, we just suggest you hang up. One of the tricks they have is if they ask you as soon as you answer, "Can you hear me?" Say no and hang up. Because what they're doing is they're recording your answer yes, or they're hoping to, and you've just agreed to buy something every month for 2 years, and they'll try and hold you to that. There's also a thing called the one-ring phone scam. It's a variation of the same one. It often happens late at night. You hear your phone ring once, there's nobody there. If you have caller ID, don't call that number unless you recognize it, or it's a local number. It could be a long distance call. It's going to cost you about $100 before you, on your phone bill before you get off it. That's just a variation of a scam. Another one to avoid is any call from Visa or MasterCard. Visa or MasterCard will never call you. It's your bank that you deal with that will call you. So anything from Visa and MasterCard, just hang up. There's another weird one. If you have a call display on your phone and you get a phone call and you don't answer it in time, you may see this as the number that's called you. If it has a V in front of it, I don't know what the V stands for, but it's some system they have of blocking calls that have been identified as spam. Maybe it's because they're coming from a certain number. So you'll notice that there'll be a V and then this long number. Just pick up the receiver and drop it down. It's the only way to stop it, just hang up. The fourth one was fairly new this past year, and it's called extortion. And there are various forms of this extortion. The first one that came out was one that porn scammers were making about $100,000 a month each. And what they would do is they would make phone calls only to men or women with the name Pat, which I guess they thought might be a man. That seemed to be the pattern. And they were threatening to post pictures of you while you were watching a porn site. And most little laptops like this have a little camera up there, and they could be taking pictures of you. That is a fairly common one. I've had even friends call me about that one. One gentleman had his phone was the phone that he was in his office, which was the spare bedroom, and sometimes he knew he hadn't made any porn calls, but sometimes his grandson stayed there, sometimes his son, and sometimes his son-in-law. So he kind of panicked, and he went to the trust company to withdraw $8,000 from a joint account he had with his wife. And of course, the trust company phoned the wife. And of course, he phoned me. And I was able to, I knew the gentleman, I knew his computers were old because he tried to send me some things once. And so I asked his wife to go into the spare bedroom or office and look for that little camera on the top. And there was no camera. It was a really old laptop. And I think I saved his marriage with that. I don't know. I'm going to take credit for it anyway. But that has happened. And they're the people that are making $100,000 a month tax-free. Now, the South Simcoe Police, where I live, this was almost a year ago today, were investigating a sextortion scam. And that was the first time I heard of the new variation of this scam. And this one involved an adult male victim who received a Facebook friend request from a lady. And after only a few minutes of texting back and forth, she asked him to start a video chat like Zoom. So he did. And apparently after a few minutes of texting, this chat rather, they both took their clothes off. I don't know what else they did, but that wasn't in the police report. She then texted the victim back and demanded money in exchange for deletion of the video. She threatened to distribute the video to his family and friends, and then post it on the internet if he didn't pay some money. This is real. In one incident, according to the local police there, the video was actually sent to the Facebook account of one of the victim's mothers. So, you know, they're getting pretty serious with this type of thing. So be very, very leery about it. Even the OPP have sent out a warning about it. You notice on my slides, I've started adding some dates here, just for the last sort of 3 months, I think, to show you how many of these things are just popping up new, or new variations in the last little while. And even so in South Simcoe, they sent out warnings about this. The OPP partners are warning also of violent extortion scams, where they're actually physically threatening people. And the Innisfil police one that I mentioned, that wasn't just a one-time operation. In fact, just this month earlier, there were 2 men reported incidents in 1 week. Neither one of them had paid the subjects any money, but maybe that was because it was published locally. So they're all variations of the original scam. The 5th one is a bank investigator. Somebody calls and pretends they're from the bank, and they don't trust one of the tellers, and they want you to withdraw some money and do something with it. In one case, they want you to buy some gift cards and send it to them. That's another variation of scams. So be very careful about phone calls from bank investigators. We've had a lot of calls about that. The 6th one is a prize or lottery scam. And the OPP mentioned that an elderly resident of Norfolk County got several calls saying they had won an international lottery of $24.9 million, but they had to pay some taxes first. The taxes, unfortunately, amounted to $152,000 that they paid before they realized it was a complete scam. Another one out west cost an elderly BC couple nearly $400,000 that they paid in taxes. So they're very smooth operators. Now, the extra one that I want to mention today is the grandparent scam. This was the top scam up until about 7 or 8 years ago, when it was most of the scammers were operating out of Montreal, and the RCMP, I think, were very responsible for closing down that operation. but it unfortunately has come back. And again, I'll mention South Simcoe Police. An Innisfil man said he was called by the Alberta RCMP, who claimed his grandson was arrested and needed $8,000 for bail. Now, first of all, the police don't go around trying to collect bail for people. So be very leery about that. And then in North Bay, this is all up and down Yonge Street, so maybe you're safe over here, I don't know. North Bay police up there were very concerned about this as well, because the police would not normally call. In this case, they were looking for bail money, not something that police would ever arrange. And in North Bay, there were 3 local victims defrauded of thousands of dollars. Somebody was actually coming to the door trying to collect money for from the grandparents for their kids. And most of these scammers were from Montreal, but they had hired somebody to go to North Bay and actually knock on doors trying to collect the money. Barrie police reported the same thing, and they actually charged somebody from Quebec in this grandparent scam because they were at the door trying to collect the money. And the same thing in Orillia, also on Highway 11. And a local senior there had received a call from a male identifying himself as a grandson. And he didn't want mom and dad to know, but they apparently forked out $5,000. Police don't go around collecting money. They have nothing to do with the bail operation. And in this man, the same thing. And just so we're not alone, there were these two gentlemen that pretended to be a grandparent, or pretended to contact a grandparent, pretending they were the police, and they scammed him out of $9,000 just on August the 22nd, I think it was, pretending to be his grandson in legal peril. Second suspect actually pretended to be a lawyer. One of these guys pretended to be the grandson, one pretended to be the lawyer. But the Niagara police managed to catch them. Same thing in Newmarket. Nicky and his wife are one of more than 50 reports of grandparent scam in the York Region Police in 22 alone. 100% increase from the previous year. And when you consider that's probably only 5% that they're catching, that's pretty big money. There's also a bank investigator scam with new variations. So be very leery about calls from the bank alerting you to fraud. In one case, they wanted the person to buy gift cards and call the number into them. Call in the gift card number and they cash it right away. So, and in another case, they asked you to, they told you they were going to send you new Visa and MasterCards and your bank card in the mail, but they wanted you to put your old ones in an envelope and put them outside the door. Okay, and what happens now when if you have to change your bank card? They tell you to tear it up, right? They have no use for it. It's just somebody trying to get your cards. Also, there are various other things going on, like the war in Ukraine that has spawned a lot of charity scams. And I think I have time to throw this one in because it's a little bit more serious. This man from Barrie who had been working in a small machine shop, managed to lure in more than 500 people to invest in a point of sale device that he claimed was used in stores across Canada, but did not even exist. And he was caught and immediately pled guilty. The reason he was caught so fast was that the Ontario Serious Fraud Office, which is something very, very new, was brought into this case. Now, the problem with the police and getting people to jail right now is that it very often takes years for the police to investigate and track everything down. I know my RCMP colleagues had a big case thrown out because they had spent 4 years on it. They still couldn't. They were still finding more people, and it was thrown out because it had taken so long. In this case, instead of the police working on it for 4 years and then turning it over to the Crown Attorney, they get the Crown Attorney involved right from the start. So you have two agencies working together, and in this case, within a year, this person had pled guilty to a huge fraud. Can't remember how many, like it was in the millions, 48 million, there it is. $48 million this guy had scammed. And if under the old system, it probably would have been thrown out before everybody reported it, and they managed to catch him. This new Ontario fraud office is set up by sorry, something different here. By the OPP and the Ministry of the Attorney General, and they were able to bring it to a close within a year. So that's what the new Serious Fraud Office is all about. So we love the internet, but it's tracking everything you do. I'm going to skip a few ones here. The South Simcoe police warned people about a Bradford Facebook group hoax. This was one that actually started in the States, and the post regarding a child abduction was started in the United States, and then somebody tried the same thing in Bradford by putting a story out on Facebook, getting people to chip in money to try and solve the problem. So just remember that Google tracks everything you do. And an example of hacking that's fairly serious and was just recent, the hackers stole 52 years of employees' personal info from the Waterloo District District School Board. So teachers who've retired, like yourselves and I, all your information is out there and has been hacked by these people. It was a very serious cyber attack, and they were also able to access the paycheck history of all employees for the past decade. They were able to hack student information, which hasn't been specified yet, and they were not involved. The Waterloo police were not even involved until 2 months after they'd been hacked. So it's a fairly serious type of thing that's going on. They were also in Waterloo. Reader's Digest scam is back, and the Waterloo police are warning about new used car scam hitting the area. You ever tried to buy a new or used car lately? The prices are astronomical. So our take-home message is simply this: we're all prime targets. There's an awful lot of problems going on. The former Twitter chief of security has announced that the company's security practices are dangerously lacking. And if you're on Twitter, I would do something to try and get off. Twitter is considered to be grossly negligent in this. Anybody can hack in on. Twitter leadership is misleading the public lawmakers. They should be warning people about it. Apple also warns of security flaws for iPhones, iPads, and Macs. And if you're on Chrome, starting in mid-August here, Chrome browser, people got 11 security fixes on 1 day. In other words, you need to really update it now, they said. And 13 days later, there were another 24 security holes that were discovered. And 4 days after that, again, more holes. So if you're on Chrome, I would suggest you look at other alternatives. And still got time for some questions. Sorry to have all that bad news, but that's the way it is. A lot of sad looking faces there. I scare the heck out of everybody.
No, any questions?
I'm sorry?
What should you do if you think somebody's trying to scam you? Should you report it to somebody?
No, you have to, it depends on who is scamming you. Okay? You can report it to us. And we have fridge magnets and whatnot at the back there with our phone number. But the main problem is, if they can scam you today, they can scam you next week too. So you need to be very careful on your computer and who you're providing information to. For example, I bought a little device online. I saw it advertised online. It was a little, one of these little memory sticks, but it had special features. It would collect all your photos on all your different computers and different disk drives. If we still have disk, the floppy disk, you could collect all of them onto the one thing, and it would eliminate all the duplicates and just give you a list of every photo you'd ever taken. Sounds great. And trouble was, I bought the thing, and luckily I spoke to both my sons before I used it because they're both computer geeks. And one of them knew that every time I put a photo on that drive, they got a copy of it. Now, I don't have any dangerous photos, but I don't like the idea of sharing photos with people. Luckily, I hadn't used it yet, and I still haven't used it. If anybody'd like it, that's the type of thing. You need to stop the problem, and the problem is who's hacking your computer. How are they getting information on your computer? Okay.
I just wanted to mention a couple of things that happened to me, but the one that seems to be coming back a lot is I get a phone call from somebody saying they're from Amazon. Buy things online from Amazon, and right away they have your interest. But I got to the habit of saying, "Oh, okay, well, I'll phone Amazon back myself." then you don't hear a thing for quite a while. But I think if you just say to them, well, I'll phone that company myself, you can get rid of them quite easily.
How many people in here don't have an Amazon account but have had an Amazon phone call? Okay, that sort of summarizes it pretty closely. That's a very common, one of the most common, I guess, scams. Amazon has never called me. I have an Amazon account, but I've never had a call from Amazon. So it's partly because I changed my phone number some years ago. But it gives you a good indication that it's a scam. So be very leery about Amazon calls.
Netflix is another one that I know that Netflix is another one that I get fairly regularly, that my Netflix account is frozen. I don't have a Netflix account.
Yeah, that's, even if you don't have one, you'll get that call. Yes,
I'm getting probably 2 or 3 emails a week, various people who thank you for renewing your account, security program, or something like that, which I don't know, so I just scrap it all. That's the best way to do it.
yes, it is the best way to do it. Just hang up on them. In fact, as soon as you hear the fact that they're asking, something personal, like, hi, how are you today? And it's not somebody you know, or you don't recognize the phone, if you have a call display, just hang up on them. I do. A lot of people, and for years, it was quite common to give them a hard time on the phone. You don't want to do that, because these people have automatic telephone dialers, and they could start phoning you at 3 o'clock every morning, and you don't really want that. Okay? I'm sorry, you have a brother?
Who died in February,
Oh, okay, yes.
and I have in the last 3 months, 4 months, had 3 emails from his name in my email saying, I hope they're doing.
Yeah,
And I have no idea what to do.
yeah.
We should always originate, not receive. Stop. Phone call. I got a phone call the other day, asking about my friends. Okay.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
You got a mic coming over.
Thank you. I got a phone call the other day, evening, of course. Very much first. Comment. Extended a little bit more. Furnished my workshop. Didn't work. Furnished people in, very rest of the people. Already, money, fixed furnace for $2,000. Place must be paid in May, or sounds like a fixed. Where you originate the call. Standing. This is a veteran company.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's a man that did the Ponzi scheme, and there was $40 million involved. What happens that $48 million?
The last I heard, it was part of yours. No. The last I heard, the police were recovering some of that money. But the fact that he wasn't really an expert at it, maybe he did very well at it, but I do believe they were still recovering the money.
And does that go back to the people that he wanted?
Yes. Yes, it would.
So,
It's not always very successful, but in this case, I think they had a pretty good idea of where it was. Would it be?
what percentage of the money that gets scammed goes back to the people that?
Very, very little.
Oh, thank you.
That might be an exception. Because he wasn't that much of an expert. He was just an amateur.
Right. If you're on your computer and you think it's scammed, how far can they go with this without actually, you've not given them your bank information or anything like social insurance number, things like that? How far can they actually get into your bank, and can they actually take the money without actually you telling them the information? And does the bank, and then another one, do the banks protect you?
Did you hear that?
Okay, she was wondering how far can you go to make your, when you're on the computer, how deep can they go without you actually personally sharing the information, your banking information?
It depends completely on how good a security package you have on your computer. You need really good, up-to-date security to protect your computer.
But do the bank protect you? And, you know, you can investments, are they protected?
I'm sorry, I'm not getting that.
Will the bank protect you?
You'd have to ask your bank. In some cases, they're very good, and in other cases, kiss the money goodbye. I'm sorry, there isn't a general rule. That's why the banks, for example, are warning people about scams, the dating scam and things like that. It's not something you can count on. Especially if they warn you. If you write a check and send it off to somebody and they cash it and the bank doesn't owe you anything. Okay.
I just recently listened to an ad video, and the advice was to assign an alert person to your bank account so that if unusual transactions or large amounts of money is going to be taken out of your account, this other person through the bank would be alerted first. I don't know whether that's correct information.
It would depend on the bank. I think it's something you could certainly ask your bank. You could put a limit, if they will put a limit on it. Some will and some won't. That's where it goes to.
Yeah, I think that's lots of great questions. We'll wrap it up. Well, thank you very much, Brock. I really appreciate you coming out today, and certainly really enjoy the information, and I'm hoping that we'll help protect our members today. And on behalf of the Beaver Valley Coast Club, I'd like to offer you an honorarium. So thank you, token of our appreciation for you coming out today. Thank you.
you want a secure way of looking for things online, get rid of whatever you have now, and just Google DuckDuckGo. It's a new privacy browser, it's actually been around for 10 years, that does not share your information with anybody else. It's called DuckDuckGo. I don't know where they got the name. I know there's one Ontario government employee pension fund that's sunk $10 million in it, so I'm assuming it's good. DuckDuckGo.
Duck.
Sorry. There it is.
Good.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
thank you very much.